Hello nerds and nerdettes, welcome back to the channel. Today we have another review for you guys yet again. This time not on a more recent released omnibus, but still a Marvel omnibus, and that is The Hulk by Peter David, Volume 1. A very, very important run to the character, a character-defining run in general. And inside this book is the first beginning half of a 12-year run on the character of the Hulk by the magnificent Peter David. This is my favorite run on the Hulk, not necessarily the early half that is covered here, but my favorite run in entirety. So with that being said, we can go ahead and jump to some overhead shots. Before we do that, I do want to remind you guys that this omnibus is 1,008 pages and does have a cover price of $125. But we can now jump to those overhead shots. And here we are, guys, The Incredible Hulk by Peter David, Volume 1, the reprint or second printing. Beautiful dust jacket, beautiful choice between the variants of the standard edition or direct market. Both Todd McFarlane art and absolutely amazing. His art is stellar throughout the portion of the book that he does illustrate. And here are the flaps, the inner flaps. I know some of you guys like taking a look at these. And then of course the wraparound cover, which all of you know I am a huge fan of, huge supporter of. Todd McFarlane art once again on that wraparound cover. And then a quick look at the sewn binding. My copy was extremely tight. I had to stretch it quite a bit, so make sure you stretch your copy. I know the reprint had some issues with the binding, so just make sure you inspect that. Getting right into the book though, we have baby blue end pages, and then of course title page and table of contents. We know how these beginnings of these books kind of go. And then, of course, the first issue of Peter David writing. A little bit of a kind of disclaimer. These early portions of the book are a little rough. They kind of feel like a chore to even read, but the art is at least beautiful. But I do blame the story slightly on just Peter David picking up where the previous writer pretty much left off, and kind of trying to learn the character overall and kind of know where he's going. And you can definitely get that vibe. It kind of just feels like it's just there. It doesn't feel like there's a huge purpose behind anything that really happens in the very beginning of the story and even towards right before the halfway point. I did at least really enjoy Todd McFarlane's art, and at about the halfway point of the book, Jeff Purvis takes over. I didn't enjoy his art as much as Todd McFarlane's, but during that portion of the book, I feel like Peter David gets very comfortable with the character and the cast that he's exploring, and it gets that much better right at that point. So art dips down for me personally, but the art or the writing gets astronomically better from there. If you can't tell, the Hulk is not the Jade Giant that we're used to throughout this omnibus. This does cover the era of Hulk where he is gray. He's also much more intelligent than the Green Hulk, as well as a lot more weaker, which is very interesting to kind of explore. And at no point is he green in this book, so you get nothing but gray Hulk. You also get the Joe Fixit era of the Hulk, which I am a huge fan of. It's where he essentially becomes hired muscle for the mob in Vegas. Very fun, very interesting to kind of see the Hulk not only intelligent, but just in that situation in general. You do also get a decent amount of crossovers in this book. You get 2 crossovers with the Fantastic Four. You also get a crossover with Spider-Man, a crossover with X-Factor. So you do get the Hulk getting involved with the Marvel Universe quite a bit, which is always great. The crossover issues are a lot of fun, really well done. I really enjoyed the X Factor issue, even though it was earlier in the book, but I'm a sucker for Cyclops in general, and I loved how he was written and how involved he was during that story. One thing that this run is famous for is really exploring the Hulk's mental relationship with Bruce Banner and how they kind of work together in the brain and mind that they share. That is very much explored throughout this book, so that is a great, interesting aspect that Peter David essentially created, as well as him exploring the supporting cast of Clay Quartermain, Rick Jones, Betty Ross. There's even some scenes with Doc Samson, and he gets even more involved in the later portions of this run. So very much a Hulk book, but he does not leave the supporting cast to the wayside. He definitely has some fun with them as well and tells some stories involving them. There's even a portion of the book where Rick Jones, Clay Quartermain, and the Hulk are pretty much a triage traveling the states trying to hunt down gamma bombs. So you get to see the Hulk and Bruce Banner working as a team. Super cool, great stuff there as well. You do get a lot of focus on the leader as the villain. So if you are a fan of that villain, there's a lot of them in here. You do get some scenes with Abomination and Madman as well, which was a lot of fun. The Countdown storyline specifically was a great point during this omnibus where I felt very engaged, and I felt like it was a very well told story exploring the Hulk approaching potential death and how he's kind of handling it with Bruce Banner, because while they share the same body, they are essentially two different entities throughout this book and this era, which is, like I said, a very interesting concept and one Peter David explores quite a bit. And then getting to the end of the book, we of course have the extras, pinups, art, panels, everything you could possibly want. This is a great omnibus, a great run. It only gets better from here, so don't get discouraged from this, and definitely check this out if you are a fan of Grey Hulk, because that's pretty much all you get from this book. So we'll wrap around for some closing thoughts. And we are back. Welcome back. If you guys could not tell, I have very mixed feelings on this specific omnibus, this early phase of Peter David's run on the character. I do feel like the story, as well as even the art at times, was struggling for me personally, for my personal taste. I really enjoyed Todd McFarlane's work earlier in the book. As I said, Jeff Purvis, not so much. But at the same point, when I was really enjoying the art, I feel like Peter David was very unsure of the story he was telling and felt very uncomfortable telling that story. But once Jeff Purvis took over with art, Peter David was doing magnificent in his storytelling. This is kind of mid to late 80s comics, so very wordy, very dialogue heavy. You're looking at multiple speech bubbles per panel, so prepare yourself to read. Even though it's a Hulk title, this is not the run that's meant for smashing and fighting, even though there are points later in the run where that kind of does happen. But this is much more in depth, much more about the mental relationship between Hulk and Bruce Banner inside the head that they both essentially share, as well as kind of their relationship with the supporting cast such as Rick Jones or Clay Quartermain, Marlowe, Betty Ross, whoever it may be. And that's kind of the main focus of this omnibus in general, is to expand and build that world and kind of start a story towards a bigger picture. If you can't tell, from the cover or the internal work that I was going over, the Hulk is gray, so this is where you're going to get the Joe Fixit era of the Hulk, where he is gray, he's weaker than Green Hulk, but also has a quick temper and a nasty mouth on him. Very enjoyable persona of the Hulk that we do get fleshed out in later volumes, especially when it comes to Doc Samson and his interactions with Bruce. But overall, I'm going to have to give this omnibus probably a 6 out of 10. I feel like this is probably the run at its weakest point, just because there's a lot of not necessarily comfortability with the character or the story. Everything does flow from one issue to the next, except for about 3 issues throughout the omnibus, but it didn't really feel like stakes were necessarily on the line. It just felt like a lot of fun, and it was very, very heavy in dialogue. I'm not a huge fan of kind of this era of comics where every character is explaining every movement and every action that they take. Luckily, we do get out of this era, especially in the next volume, so breath of fresh air there. Well, you get a little bit of it in the next volume, if I'm being honest, but you move away from it a little bit. But still a great book and a great jumping on point if you'd like to start the Hulk, especially if the Hulk smash style of storytelling isn't necessarily your pace and you want something a little bit more fleshed out and something that explains the character of the Hulk a little bit more, rather than just having him fight enemy of an issue type of story. But really good book. Gets better from here. Don't be discouraged by the 6 out of 10 because it does get extremely better. Just, it's early days as far as Peter David's relationship with the Hulk, and you gotta give him some time to shine, some time to flourish. But that does wrap up today's review on The Hulk by Peter David, Volume 1. Great book. I'm going to be slowly diving into a lot of my backlog TBR. Most of this I've read, including the material in this book, but I have to reread quite a bit to kind of get my thoughts together, especially since doing this YouTube thing. A lot of the more current omnibuses and runs and maybe ones I've recently read are fresh in the head and I can quickly do reviews, but every now and again we'll come across a omnibus where I really have to do a full read through to really get the mind all sorted out and my ideas as far as how I feel about the story overall or the art or whatever it may be. But I really, really hope you guys enjoyed this review. Of course, as always, if you'd like to join the Illuminati, hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you can get notified anytime I put out content. I'd also really appreciate you sending a thumbs up my way by hitting that icon. It helps the algorithm immensely, really helps the channel grow. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you guys on Friday, and happy holidays just in case I don't say it. And of course, thank you so much and stay nerdy.